For the first time in the history of modern aerial warfare, an F-35 has shot down a piloted aircraft in combat. This is a moment that defense analysts, weapons program managers, and air power strategists have been waiting years to see. And the way it happened tells you everything you need to know about why the United States spent over $1 trillion building this aircraft. We'll get into all of that, including the actual footage of the kill and what it reveals about both aircraft. But first, let's be clear about what happened on the morning of March 4th. This wasn't a close fight by any stretch, but despite that, it's useful as a demonstration of the future of air combat and how it takes only seconds for everything to go right, or in the case of Iran, go wrong. The Israel Defense Forces confirmed the kill on social media, with the translated announcement reading, "An Israeli Air Force Adir F-35I shot down an Iranian combat aircraft, the Yak-130, over the skies of Tehran." The IDF specifically called it the world's first shoot-down of a manned attack jet by an F-35. Air Force Commander Tom Abar personally congratulated the pilot shortly after the engagement. The Nevatim Air Base commander, identified publicly only as Brigadier General D, later added the operational details. He explained that multiple types of Israeli aircraft were deployed against the hostile aircraft, but that an F-35I was specifically selected to take the shot. The reason was straightforward. Since the aircraft's advanced sensors could lock onto the target quickly and accurately, its long-range missiles were exactly the right tools for the mission. Brigadier General D described what happened inside the cockpit. "We detected it, got on it, and launched at it. There was no overly complicated air battle here, no dogfight or aerial scuffle. There was a rapid response here, which ended in making history in the skies of Iran." That description is worth sitting with, because the absence of a dogfight was the entire point of showcasing how exactly a potential prolonged conflict between Israel and Iran is expected to look. On March 5, the Israeli Air Force released the cockpit footage of the engagement, and it's genuinely remarkable material. The video was recorded through the F-35I's electro-optical targeting system, a stealthy forward-looking infrared and targeting sensor integrated directly into the aircraft's fuselage. This is unlike older generation optical systems, which were mounted in an external pod. What you can see in the footage is the Yak-130 clearly visible in the F-35's optical sights. The video suggests the Iranian pilot may have been attempting to maneuver to engage, but defense analysts describe the Iranian aircraft's evasive action as desperate, given that the Yak-130, while capable of carrying radar and some combat-configured variants, is still primarily a light trainer and attack aircraft limited largely to short-range engagements. Ultimately, none of the attempts to evade mattered. The F-35 had already acquired the target and was inside the kill range long before the Yak-130's pilot could have meaningfully responded. Over the audio, the F-35 pilot can be heard saying, "Completed. Target down. The target is down. Continuing to strike." And that last phrase is significant. The F-35I was not on an air patrol mission. According to the Times of Israel, the Iranian aircraft took off from Mehrabad Airport in Tehran and posed a threat to Israeli aircraft that were actively conducting strike operations against Iranian regime targets in the city. In other words, the F-35 that shot down the Yak-130 then continued its strike mission. It multitasked an air-to-air kill into a pre-existing combat sortie, eliminated the threat, and kept moving. That speaks to the operational tempo that the F-35 is designed to sustain. There's also an additional piece of video from a ground-level perspective that surfaced on social media. Unverified footage appears to show the stricken Iranian plane crash landing in a mountainous area north of Tehran, accompanied by what appeared to be 2 ejections from the aircraft, which is consistent with the Yak-130's 2-seat configuration. Iranian state media and IRGC-linked Telegram channels initially circulated the footage while claiming it showed a US F-15 being shot down, before quickly deleting the post once it became clear the downed aircraft was actually their own jet. Yikes. The specific missile used to make the kill has not been officially confirmed. Given the apparent distance between the two aircraft at the moment of the shot, some analysts suggest the weapon was an AIM-9 short-range infrared-guided missile. That would make this engagement something of an anomaly, since the AIM-9 is within a visual range weapon and the F-35 is designed primarily for beyond visual range kills. But what it also demonstrates is that even in a shorter range engagement, the F-35's targeting systems are fast and precise enough to lock, fire, and confirm in a matter of moments. Now, let's talk about why this matters beyond the headline. The F-35 program has had a rough public narrative for most of its life. It was originally a joint strike fighter project designed to replace several aging platforms across the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps with a single versatile airframe. It was a concept that proved enormously complicated and expensive to execute. Total program costs are around $400 billion in acquisition alone, with lifetime operational costs estimated in the trillions. The aircraft spent years being criticized as overpriced, behind schedule, and not as capable in the kind of close-in maneuvering combat that air power enthusiasts tend to romanticize. And some of those criticisms have merit. The F-35 actually can't outturn the older F-16 in a rolling scissors at low altitude. It was never designed to. But that framing completely misses the actual purpose of the aircraft. The Yak-130 incident over Tehran is the clearest possible illustration of why the criticism was always asking the wrong question. The F-35 was not built to dogfight. It was built to find, identify, and destroy threats before they can engage. It was built to operate in contested airspace with a level of stealth that leaves adversary radar systems seeing nothing, while its own sensor suite builds a comprehensive picture of everything around it. It was built to shoot first and from so far away that the enemy pilot won't know what happened until it's too late. That philosophy has now been proven in real combat, over a real capital city against a real adversary aircraft. The Israeli pilot involved in the engagement was also described as relatively junior in rank by the base commander. This is worth noting because it demonstrates that the kill didn't require veteran ace exploiting specific tactical expertise. The aircraft and its systems did what they were designed to do, and a junior pilot with the right training was able to execute it cleanly. So let's go through exactly what the F-35I is, because the specifications of this aircraft are where the real story lives. The F-35I Adir is built on the same core airframe as the US Air Force's F-35A, with one critical distinction. Israel has integrated its own indigenously developed electronic warfare modules alongside the standard BAE Systems AN/ASQ 239 carried by all other F-35 operators. That additional EW capability is classified, and Israel has not disclosed its specifics. But the fact that they were allowed to integrate it at all speaks to the degree of trust and customization the US extended to Israel under the program. The Adir also carries Israel's Python 5 infrared-guided air-to-air missile in addition to standard American spec weapons, and it runs independent logistics and mission software from the rest of the global F-35 fleet. At the propulsion level, the F-35I runs a single Pratt & Whitney F-135 afterburning turbofan engine. That engine produces approximately 43,000 pounds of thrust at full afterburner. To put that in perspective, the two engines on the Yak-130 together produce roughly 11,000 pounds of thrust. The F-35 is doing around 4 times the work with a single power source. In terms of speed, the F-35A is rated to Mach 1.6, which puts it solidly in the supersonic category. Notably, the aircraft has a combat radius of around 670 nautical miles. And thanks to Israel's reported development of indigenous extended-range capabilities, the F-35I can apparently hit targets inside Iran without aerial refueling. But the propulsion and airframe numbers are almost secondary to what the F-35 sensor package does. The centerpiece of that sensor suite is the AN/APG-81 Active Electronically Scanned Array, or ESA, radar. Unlike older mechanically scanned radar systems that physically move a dish to point the radar beam, an ESA uses thousands of individual transmit-receive modules to steer the radar beam electronically. This means it can shift its focus almost instantaneously, track multiple targets simultaneously, and operate in both active and passive modes. Northrop Grumman's own documentation states that in air-to-air combat, the APG-81 gives the pilot the ability to detect, track, identify, and shoot multiple threat aircraft before the adversary can even detect the F-35. Independent analyses suggest the radar can identify up to 23 targets within 100 miles in under 9 seconds. And it can do all of this while simultaneously conducting ground mapping, electronic attack, and radar imaging. Now, what makes this radar particularly lethal is what it enables at the weapons level. The F-35A carries its weapons internally in a sealed bay that keeps its radar cross-section minimal while in stealth configuration. In that configuration, it carries 4 AIM-120 beyond visual range missiles internally. The AIM-120D, which is the most current variant, has an effective range of approximately 100 miles and uses a combination of active radar homing and initial navigation to intercept targets, even in heavy electronic countermeasures (ECM) environments. Better yet, the F-35 sensors continuously feed the missile updated targeting data during flight. So, even if a target tries to maneuver after the missile is launched, the guidance system adjusts in real time. Continuous mid-course corrections mean that the probability of a hit against a maneuvering target in a contested environment can exceed 95%. This is what it means when people describe the F-35 as a long-range sniper. It can identify a target at ranges where the target cannot even see the F-35 on radar, launch a missile that will track that target for 100 miles, and then continue on its way. Now, beyond the radar and missiles, the F-35 carries 2 additional sensor systems that even separately are remarkable achievements. The first is the Distributed Aperture System, consisting of 6 infrared cameras arrayed around the aircraft, feeding a composite 360-degree view of the surrounding airspace directly into the pilot's helmet-mounted display. That means an F-35 pilot can virtually look through the floor of the aircraft or directly behind them and see an aircraft pursuing them in real time. The second is the Electro-Optical Targeting System, or EOTS, which is the sensor used to capture the Yak-130 footage. Since it's integrated directly into the fuselage, it lowers the aircraft's radar cross-section. Between the radar, the DAS, and the EOTS, the F-35 pilot has access to a sensor suite that no other production aircraft in the world currently matches. To understand how extraordinary this is, consider where the F-35 ranks relative to the aircraft that will be sent against it in the conflict between Israel and Iran. The Yak-130 sensor suite is far more limited than that of a 5th-generation fighter. That means the pilot would likely have had little awareness of the F-35's position and would have needed either visual contact or guidance from ground controllers to attempt an intercept. Against an aircraft that's both stealthy and operating with a roughly 100-mile sensor advantage, that puts the Yak-130 pilot in an extremely difficult position. Even stepping up to Iran's other aircraft like the F-4 Phantom, the F-5 or the MiG-29, the gap remains enormous. Specifically, the MiG-29, which is arguably Iran's most advanced fighter, has a mechanically scanned pulsed Doppler radar that is theoretically capable of detecting targets at ranges of about 50 to 60 miles in lockdown mode under favorable conditions. The F-35's ESA radar operates well beyond that range with greater precision, and does so while remaining essentially invisible to the MiG's radar warning receivers. Against even the more modern Su-35, which carries the Urbis-E passive electronically scanned array radar with a theoretical detection range of 240 miles, the F-35's combination of stealth and sensor fusion means that the Su-35 may be looking for a target it can't properly see on radar while the F-35 is already launched. That was apparently a big enough deal that Israel began simulating F-35I versus Su-35 engagement in preparation for the possibility that Iran would eventually receive its Su-35 order supplied by Russia. But the engagement planning gives you a sense of how seriously Israeli and US air power planners take even a 4th-generation plus opponent in an engagement with an F-35. But if you want to learn more about how various aircraft compare, make sure to subscribe to The Military Show. We post regular analyses of leading militaries and best-in-class equipment. And that brings us to Iran's position in this conflict, because the aircraft disparity over Tehran on March 4th is not just a story about one jet. The Yak-130 is, according to the War Zone, the most advanced combat aircraft currently in Iran's operational inventory. That's the most important statement in this entire video. This is a country of 90 million people that's been building a regional military strategy for decades, with proxy forces operating from Yemen to Lebanon, and that spent years trying to acquire modern aircraft from Russia. And the best it could do was a trainer jet. Everything else Iran has is older. Its F-14 Tomcats were acquired from the United States before the 1979 revolution and were aircraft that the US Navy itself retired over 2 decades ago. Its F-4 Phantoms date back to the 1960s. Its MiG-29s were acquired in limited numbers and are now aging into obsolescence. The Yak-130 purchases and the negotiations for Su-35s were Iran's attempt to bridge the gap. And Russia, Iran's closest strategic partner with the means to provide modern aircraft, has been unable or unwilling to deliver on the timelines that would have mattered. Russia has been supplying Iran with military equipment under an arms for drones arrangement that emerged from the Ukraine war. Iran sends Shahed drones and ballistic missiles to Moscow, and Moscow sends hardware back. The Yak-130s were part of that exchange. Mi-28 attack helicopters began arriving in Iran as recently as January 2026, and leaked Russian documents from late 2025 pointed to a much larger deal of 48 Su-35 flanker E-fighters valued at approximately $6.5 billion, with delivery supposedly scheduled between 2026 and 2028. But the Su-35s were not there when the conflict reignited in early 2026, and the evidence suggests that they will not arrive on any timeline that changes the current balance of power. That's because Russian fighter jet exports have effectively collapsed. The 2017 sanctions legislation gutted traditional customer relationships, resulting in Egypt and Indonesia both cancelling Su-35 orders. China then completed its last Russian fighter purchase in 2018 and has since moved on to its own J-20 and J-35 fifth-generation programs. Russia's domestic fighter production amounted to an estimated 24 aircraft in all of 2024. That was barely enough to offset its combat losses in Ukraine, let alone generate surplus capacity for export. Instead, some Su-35s that were reportedly earmarked for Iran appear to have instead been redirected to Algeria. It should be noted that Russia is technically not abandoning Iran, since the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace noted that Russian arms supplies to Tehran are growing. But what Russia can actually deliver within a conflict's timeframe is far from what Iran would need to be competitive. The Yak-130 over Tehran was essentially the limit of what Iran had left to put in the air. So, where does this leave the conflict? The geopolitical implications of the March 4th engagement have at least 2 possible results. The first scenario is deterrence through humiliation. Iran lost its most modern jet to an engagement its pilot likely never detected coming. Every additional sortie Iran flies with its remaining aircraft now carries the same risk. The rational move for a force that's already lost aircraft, airfields, and air defense systems on a massive scale is to preserve what's left. But if Iran grounds its remaining aircraft to survive, it sees the sky entirely and accepts whatever the air campaign delivers without being able to interfere. That is a position of profound military weakness. The second scenario is escalation through defiance. Iran's regime can't afford to project weakness to its own population, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, or to the broader network of proxies whose continued loyalty depends on Iran's image as a force that resists and endures. After the 12-day war with Israel in June 2025, Tehran's immediate response was to accelerate arms negotiations with Russia and China. It signed the Verba Man-Portable Air Defense Systems, or MANPADS deal with Moscow. It opened talks with Beijing for CM-302 anti-ship missiles, which travel at supersonic speeds and could threaten US and allied naval assets in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. But a country projecting defiance publicly while managing catastrophic military losses may privately feel compelled to put more aircraft in the air. It doesn't need to look like it stopped fighting. That would mean more Yak-130s or F-4s or MiG-29s entering airspace where F-35s are operating. But the outcome of those engagements would be predictable. The F-35I's role in this conflict is almost certainly not finished. Israel's Adir fleet has 48 aircraft, with 2 more expected this year to complete its current order, and 25 additional jets ordered in 2024 for a total fleet of 75. It's one of the largest fleets of F-35s, making Israel the first country to use the F-35 in combat since its first operational use of the aircraft in 2018. Then there's the list of other milestones beyond the recorded air-to-air kill. Israel was responsible for the first F-35 kills against drones in 2021, as well as the first confirmed use of the F-35 in beast mode, meaning flying with heavy external weapons loads rather than in stealth configuration. Each of these has provided combat data that feeds into the US and Allied understanding of how the F-35 performs in real-world conditions. Looking ahead, the F-35 is also in the middle of a significant upgrade cycle. The Block 4 software and hardware package is rolling out across the global fleet, and it includes the next-generation AN/APG-85 ESA radar, a system that Northrop Grumman has described as offering a 50% improvement in range over the already formidable APG-81. The F-35 that shot down the Yak-130 is already one of the most capable production fighters in the world. But the aircraft being built right now is taking it to the next level. The broader lesson of what happened over Tehran on March 4th is not really about one trainer and light attack aircraft being shot down by one 5th-generation stealth fighter. It's about what happens when decades of investment in sensor fusion, stealth, and long-range precision engagement meet an adversary that cannot close the gap. Ultimately, the F-35 was built for this era, and it's only now starting to show it. So we can expect great things from this aircraft moving forward. Now, if you want to learn more about just how woefully ill-equipped Iran is, check out this video. And make sure to subscribe to the Military Show so you don't miss what comes next. We post daily videos and detailed analyses so you can be up to date with the most recent trends in global military and geopolitics.